It's a wonderful day, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to a wonderful and august audience as we have today. So with your permission, I would start the session, which has been named as Arise, Rising Through the Tough Times. We have a presentation, and while we were making this presentation, we tried to keep the colors as neonish as they could, because it's, I tend to love these colors. So just a second, I think yeah. So starting with the presentation, starting with my speech, this word that you see on the screen of yours, tough, the two words that should attract your attention. The first one is tough and the other one is rise. The word tough happens to be something that is a very relative concept. The definition of tough would differ from people to people, and it would differ from people who would have different perceptions. So frankly speaking, when did I get to know this word really close? Tough was when I was still a young student. And we used to play this game. I don't know how many of you have played this game. This game was called Mario. I don't know how many have known this game, but we used to play this game in the morning, गर्मी की छुट्टियों में, और शाम को हम लोग बाहर क्रिकेट खेलने जाते थे. और क्रिकेट खेलने के बाद we used to have a conversation कि यार मैं आज second stage तक पहुंच गया, I could reach the second stage, I could reach the third stage, but third stage मुझसे clear नहीं हो पाई. And then they used to come a guy used to say third stage clear नहीं हो पाई, वो तो ठीक है, but fourth stage तो तू सोच भी नहीं सकता कैसी है, वो तो इतनी tough है, वो तो इतनी difficult, you cannot even imagine it. So because a lot of commitment was going into playing these games, दिन रात ही खेलते रहा करते थे, and एक ना एक दिन fourth stage पे पहुंच गए. We used to reach the fourth stage, but because somebody from a friend circle had just come out and told us that the fourth stage is really tough, it's going to be really difficult for you, before even going into the fourth stage, we used to make a perception about the fourth stage that's going to be so difficult. Now there used to be different enemies used to come in front, and we used to think, anytime we used to see something new, we used to have this thing, I think this is what the guy was referring to as tough, but many times you could just overcome that. When I was thinking about this concept tough, I don't know why that story came back to my mind. So many things that we face in our lives, we consider them to be tough, even before we have gotten in touch with them, even before we've gotten in contact with them. There's a wonderful audience around here. I'm sure this video is being recorded. This video would be presented to all the members across the group. Each one comes from a very different background. Each one would have come from a background where they would have struggled a lot for their basics also, for their education also. And today the COVID-19 has come, and the world is saying that we would go into a depression. We don't know what would happen. We won't know what would happen to the economy. I agree. I agree. The times that we are into are unprecedented, but it is not that something of this sort has not happened earlier. Many of the people around us who would be listening to us might have gone through tougher times without the COVID-19 being in place. You and I have gone through tougher times. COVID-19 is just a passing phase. So if something has come in front of you and somebody else has told you, just like my friends used to tell me, Pratik, it's going to be really tough. The fourth stage is going to be really tough. Let me tell you, I cleared the fourth stage also. I cleared the fifth stage also. I cleared the sixth stage also. So if somebody has come down and told us that there's going to be economic depression, we know that for sure. But we have overcome these situations not once, but a couple of times before this also. You see an image in front of you, this guy. What do I say about this man? I'm so much inspired by the Japanese. So this guy's name is Soichiro. And this guy was there in Japan. And as all of you would have learned through the history, the Second World War was something that devastated the Japanese like anything. What happened to Japan, nobody thought that Japan would come out of the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombings and come out to be a world superpower. That's what it is today. So there's this man in front of you, Soichiro. He had a business idea. He wanted to create a business enterprise for himself. He kept on asking himself, what is one thing that I should get into? He saw that the Japanese economy is industrializing a lot. He saw that there is a chance that the spending power of the people would rise. He knew that the two-wheeler industry is going to come up. He also knew that the four-wheel industry is going to come up. At that particular point of time, Toyota was already into existence. as we know it as Toyota today, earlier it was known as Toyoda, Toyoda. So this guy thought, um, as we call the job work in these days, that aap kisi aur ka kaam kar doge. He thought, let me get into some kind of job work. Let me create one of the most important components for Toyota. That would be a piston. I really don't know how many of you know what a piston is, but piston is what drives energy for an internal combustible engine. All the people who drive, जब आप पेट्रोल डलवाते हो गाड़ी में, जब आप डीजल डलवाते हो गाड़ी में, so the petrol or the diesel has to be hammered by something. That hammer is called as piston. So this guy thought, I'm going to make a piston. And whom do I make the piston for? I make the piston for one of the most renowned companies in the world, and that is Toyota. He made a piston, and he directly went to the people at Toyota. This is such a beautiful point. He directly went to the people at Toyota, and he said, I have made a piston, and I want you all to see it. I want you all so as to check it. And if it's possible, why don't you incorporate it and you give me business? I'll make pistons for you. So the guy who was sitting in the office in the chair, he saw the piston. And this guy asked, how do you like the piston? There was a window which was open out there. He threw the piston outside the window. And he said, you wanted to ask me how the piston is. The quality of the piston is such that it does not even deserve to be in Toyota's office. Forget Toyota's car. And you know what he would have felt like. Went away, but did not accept failure. We're talking about tough times. Did not accept failure. And then started to contemplate what has gone wrong. Was my quality not so good? And then again started to work on the quality and again made the piston version 2.0. Went back to the office, showed the piston to this guy again and said, I'm the same guy who came to you earlier. I showed you the piston. I asked for the quality and you threw the piston outside the window. This time you don't throw it out. You tell me whether it's good or not. And the other guy said, it's wonderful. It's really nice. It might be able to meet our quality standards and we would want to give you a contract. And this guy was so happy. He was on the seventh sky. Went back to his wife and told that I have achieved what I always wanted to achieve. Now I am going to be a supplier of pistons to the Toyotas. And this guy was living his dream, just like many of us in our previous times would have lived our dreams. And the Toyota people gave him a contract, signed the contract. And unfortunately, after the contract was given to him, the Second World War started. The Americans started to bomb Japan like anything. And the Americans, a lot of love for the Americans, a lot of respect for the Americans, but they can get very nasty. And while they were bombing, while they were pushing down the bombs from the bombers, they were also throwing down big tankers of petrol, so that when the bomb exploded, the petrol along would cause a heavier explosion, a much bigger explosion. And this guy's factory was leveled. Leveled means leveled. In his memoir, he says that one could have played football on my factory. That is what his factory was made into, like a football field. But I don't know what was this man made up of. He said, I have to come up with my business. I cannot let my dream slip away off my hands. Very tough times. First, you go to Toyota, they simply reject you. They don't only reject you, they make you feel small. And second, when you're so close to achieving your dreams, you build a factory. The Americans bomb it. You can do nothing about it. But this guy did not want to fail. This guy did not want to give up on his dreams. This guy again went up and established another factory. Took money from his wife, took loan, established the factory for the second time. And as you know, Japan has a demography where there are many earthquakes. The second time he established his factory, the earthquake ravaged his factory. His factory was gone. 3 times. First, the Toyota people threw his piston out. The second time, there were bombings. The third time, there was earthquake. But there are some people who would never accept failures in their lives. And this guy, the third time, made his factory, established his factory, came up with pistons, delivered it to Toyota. And he did not stop there. He went on creating, he went on co-creating. And today, his first name makes no sense to people, Soichiro. His second name makes a lot of sense to people because his full name is Soichiro Honda. this guy came up with the brand, as we all know, is Honda. So we all are in tough times, but who is in tougher times? Are you in tougher times, or was he in tougher times? How many earthquakes have you faced? How many bombings have you faced? God forbid, we haven't, even one. As chartered accountants, you all do a lot of comparative analysis. So when we talk about comparative analysis, I want you to do this kind of comparative analysis. This is called as the KAIZEN comparative analysis. The Japanese people, when they were bombed by the Americans, Corona Bhav jisko bolte hain, when the Americans thought, oh my God, what we have done to the Japanese, now we need to help them build their industry again. The Americans started to send in their professors, the best of their minds, so as to rebuild Japan again. And one of the professors, when he came down to this place, along with one of the corporate heads, he said, we need total quality management. We need TQM at this place, and we need to present Kaizen. Now, the great thing about the Japanese people is that the Kaizen technology which was presented was a corporate concept. Kaizen was so as to bring constant and never-ending improvement in the corporate world, in the products, in the services. But such are the Japanese people. They said, if this can be implemented, if this can be incorporated into the corporate, why can't we incorporate it into ourselves? And that is how the Kaizen concept became one concept which has been introduced by these people into their lives. The Japanese say that if you haven't seen a friend for 3 days and you meet him on the 4th day, then either you should not be able to recognize him, or if you recognize him, you should see a lot of change in him. That is what Kaizen is. You bring small changes each and every day. Now this lockdown has happened for almost how many days? 80 days? Now in 80 days, what all has changed in your life? And the lockdown is almost about to open. What has changed in the last 80 days? Now when I say this, people say, Pratik, why do you have to make us feel bad about ourselves? We have done nothing in 80 days. You make us feel really bad about ourselves, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not here to make you feel bad about yourself. I'm here to tell you something really important. If you did not change anything in the last 80 days, you need to ask yourself this question. Do you want to change something? Number one. And number two, if you could not change anything in yourself, then what is the reason behind it? The reason behind it might be this. This is the equation for the motivation. This is V into V divided by D and D. Whenever you would want to do something new, whenever you would want to change something in yourself, this equation is going to play a very important role in your lives. The numerator has got two elements. V is for value. E is for expectation. Value into expectation. And divided by two items. Number one is distance. How far are you away from your expectations? How far away? And the second D is distraction. I'll repeat it again. First V is value. How much value do you think your change is going to generate for you? How much value do you think is your product going to generate for you? And what is the expectation that you can do it? Now, expectation is very extrinsic. Value, whenever you create a product, you know what is the value proposition of that product. Look at Ola. I was doing a case study with some professors around on Zomato. What a wonderful thing Zomato has done. Zomato was never a food delivery platform. It might have been their intention, but they were never a food delivery platform. They were creating a community of people who would come together, who would give review of the restaurant, like say in Hyderabad, the Paradise Biryani, how good it is it, or how bad is it, or the Karachi biscuits, how good the Karachi biscuits are, or what was their experience at the Karachi biscuit outlet at the airport, or what was their experience at the Paradise Biryani Center at X, at Y, or Z. That was their product. That was the product. They knew that was their value proposition. And they had very high expectations because nobody else had done it previously. So if your numerator is really high, the chances of you going and achieving what you want to achieve becomes exponential. But there are two factors that divide. One is the distance. You cannot do anything about the distance. Benjamin Franklin. Nobody knew that Benjamin Franklin is going to be the president of the United States. Nobody knew that Abraham Lincoln is going to be the president of the United States. Because the distance from where they were to where they reached was humongous. huge, crazy. The first D was really high, but the second D was really low. Distraction. How distracted do you feel? If you're highly distracted, how do you think are you going to achieve what you want to achieve? To achieve something, you need to be dead serious about it. There are two words that I want to introduce at this place from my English glossary, very basic. First is interested. We see people saying that I'm so much interested to it. Keep your interest with you. I don't want your interest. Show me your commitment. Are you committed to make it? Or are you interested to make it? That makes a lot of difference. That makes a lot of difference. The people who are interested might never become the titans. The people who are committed, these are the people who become titans. Sachin, Kambli was more gifted, people say. Sachin has been less gifted, that is what people say. But you see where Sachin is. Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer. When Roger Federer is from Switzerland. Switzerland is a very cold place. And so is Spain. Not a very cold place, but it's okay. These people used to push themselves to the limits. They used to go and practice in the Middle East, 44 degrees, 45 degrees, 46 degrees. They were not distracted. They wanted a Grand Slam. They had very high expectations from themselves. Forget what others think about yourself. Tell me, what do you think about yourself? This is the equation that is going to impact you. Value into expectation, divide by 2 Ds. How distracted you are and what is the distance. So whenever you want to achieve something, whenever you want to rise up, there are going to 2 factors that are going to play. Number 1 are the external factors, and number 2 are the internal factors. When we do the external factors, we do some small case studies. The first is, how well do you adapt? The second is, do you foresee? And the third is, do you innovate? Now, when I was preparing the material for this particular speech, I was thinking that I am here in touch with the practitioners, the tax practitioners. How do I see the tax practitioners innovating, foreseeing, and adapting? I really have to say this thing to you. It really doesn't matter what kind of profession are you in. In case you want to achieve these 3 things, in case you want to foresee the changes, you can. In case you want to innovate, you can. You talk about hospitality. I am a travel bug. I would travel at lengths. Having stayed at the best of the best of the best of the places in the world, when I come back and I get to stay in a Taj or in Oberoi, these are the people who pamper me. The people at Taj, the people at Oberoi, these are minuscule in front of the big players like the Marriotts. They're minuscule. But the way these people pamper, the way these people innovate, the way these people have adapted themselves to the changing market is what attracts me to go to these places again and again and again and again. And as service providers, you have to do this. You have to do this. First thing, adaptation. What you see on the left is the Atlas cycle. I don't know how many of you have written this, but I was lucky enough to be educated in army school, and we used to have these cycles around. What you see on the left is the Atlas cycle. The Atlas cycle started in the year 1951. One of the initiators in the two-wheeler cycle industry, Atlas. And what you see on the right is the Hero cycle. The Hero cycle was half a decade later than the Atlas cycles. The Atlas started in the year 1951. The Hero started in the year 1956. Unfortunately, on the 3rd of June, Atlas announced its almost closure. They have not made it very formal, but they have asked their employees to stay home. They say, we do not have a lot of business. Hero cycles, they're doing wonderful for themselves. What did Hero do that Atlas could not? Hero, unlike Atlas, moved into newer markets. Hero is not only here in India, but Hero is providing its products, its cycles. Forget the Hero Motor Corp. It is It is providing its cycles in 70 countries. 70 countries. Hero was so smart. Hero divided the entire world market into developed, underdeveloped, and developing. Developing is India, huge market. But they did not stop themselves from just being in India. They expanded to Europe. That was the developed market. More money. Second, they also expanded to the Sri Lankan market. Less money. But the cycle is going to stay around there for a much longer period of time. They knew that the cycle, which was early and commuter, is now becoming a lifestyle product, is becoming a lifestyle statement. Trust me when I say this, when I see people having their helmets around their head, having their headphones, having their slick goggles, having their neon shirts and shorts cycling, I know this man is tremendously successful in his or her life. When I was invited to Bangladesh some time back, I had the good opportunity of being with one of the London School of Economics professor. And he said, and he looked at me and he said, "You're overweight." I said, "I know, sir, I'm overweight." He said, "You know what? In my opinion, the people who are not doing well in their lives are the ones who are overweight now. Because the others who are doing well for themselves, they have a lot of money and they can just pass on the non-important work to the people whom they can hire, and they can get the things done from them, and so that they can concentrate on their fitness." I felt so bad about it. Not only did he say that I'm not fit, but he also said, I think you're not doing very well for yourself. So when I see these people having the lifestyle products, Firefox cycles, Firefox has been acquired by Hero again. Hero did not stagnate. There is one thing about the people who want to rise, that they would never want to stagnate. Stagnation is a bad thing to happen to you. Stagnation is negative. If you do not believe that stagnation is negative, do one thing, do me a favor. Go and get a bucket of water from the washroom and then just keep it out in the garden for 4 days. Do not touch it. The fifth day, it would be a breeding ground for mosquitoes. The problem with you and I is that we will not even be the breeding ground for mosquitoes. Nobody would get to know that we have stagnated. Hero did not stop there. Hero is now into education. Hero is now into hospitality. Hero has got in contract with the people at Marriott. Hero is there into two-wheelers, Hero Motorcorp, and what do I say about Atlas? May God bless them. That is what happens when you don't adapt. Foresee. You see this guy on the left-hand side, wonderful guy, Chetan Mani. This car that you see on the left-hand side, Reva, was the first electronic car which was launched in India. I don't know how many of you have seen this car. Did not do really well for itself. What you see on the right is the Mahindra E2O. This is doing good for itself. Now, if you look at them visually, they look a lot similar, and they have to look a lot similar, because in year 2010, Anand Mahindra, the stalwart, the foreseer, he went around and bought 55% stake in Chetan Mani's company. 55% stake. He foresaw. He knew that the market is changing. He knew that the combustible engines are going out of the market. He knew that the battery operated vehicles would come out into the market. When I was reading an article dated, I think June 2010, in the Hindu, the writer said, "We don't know if this bet is going to pay off or not." Mahindra, as we all know, was never an automobile company. They made tractors. But because they could foresee, because they could see that the market is changing, because they could see that the customer preferences are about to change, these people now are placed as one of the most successful automobile brands in the country. This is what happens when you foresee. Tesla, even if Tesla comes down to the market, I don't know how affordable it would be, but this car on the right-hand side is going to be really affordable. Tata's are doing, that's fine. Maruti is doing, that's fine. But Maruti is just into automobiles. Mahindra is into 10 things, and out of them, one is automobile. So that is what puts Anand Mahindra into a separate class, into a different class altogether. He foresees. He sees that the market is changing. Innovation. Quality Walls. Quality was an ice cream brand that was based out of Delhi. Walls An MNC came down into India, bought Quality Walls, and Quality Walls became a household name. Baskin Robbins, an American brand known for its new flavor every day. Walls, an MNC, Baskin Robbins, an MNC. If I go out and ask people, tell me some ice cream brands, Indian ice cream brands. So people come up and say Cream Bell. Cream Bell is Gujarat based, and Cream Bell has an investment from a French company into it. 15% of the stake is there with a French company. People say Have More. Have More again is Gujarat based, but it has been acquired by a Korean company, Lotte. But what I'll show you the next hasn't been acquired by anybody. It has made a niche for itself because it innovated. Nothing of this sort was done in the country ever. Nobody thought that something of this thing can be done. This sort can be done. Naturals. The first small batch fruit flavored ice cream product in the market. This is what is called as creating a blue ocean for yourself. This is what is called as innovation. This is what is called as to defy what the customers can even perceive. This is innovation. Just look at these 3 slides. Adapt. Atlas couldn't, Hero could. Atlas succumbed. Hero is still doing wonderful for itself. Mahindra. It could foresee that the consumer preferences are changing. Bought into Manny's company. Innovation. This is what Naturals did. Those were the external factors. When I talk about the internal factors, the first internal factor is authentic self, and the second is mindset. Authentic self, and the second one is mindset. All the participants were around here and the wonderful panelists. I'll give you some 30 seconds. Could you please help me with this? Could you please help me introduce yourself? You did not put yourself on the unmute, but could you please introduce yourself without your name and profession? It's going to be a tough task. Very tough task. Who are you? The first time I was reading about this thing, when somebody asked me, could you please introduce yourself? I said, yeah, I'm this, I've done that. But when he said, no, I don't want your name. And not even your profession. I don't care. And that is when I went on the receiving end. The question was, what do you stand for? The question was, what do you stand for? And when somebody asks you, what do you stand for? The question has a second phase to it. Because what you stand for would also be the thing that you would be ready to fall for. What do you stand for? I am blessed to have wonderful people around me. We have a culture of art and poetry at a place. One of these days I was listening to Shakespeare. And Shakespeare in one of his creations tried to divide a man's life into different parts. The first part is where you're born and when you cry and when your mother takes care of you. The second is when you want to go to the school and then you again say, I don't want to go to the school. And third is when you fall in love. And the fourth is when you become a soldier. In the early times, people used to go into the army. There was conscription. जाना पड़ता था. But आज context थोड़ा change हो गया. आज बच्चे पैदा होते हैं, रोते हैं, माँ प्यार करती है. Second case में उनको स्कूल जाना होता है, उसमें भी रोते हैं, माँ बाप फिर भेजते हैं प्यार कर कर. तीसरा बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेप है, प्यार होता है. किस चीज से प्यार होता है? किसी इंसान से भी प्यार हो सकता है, किसी कला से प्यार हो सकता है. You can fall in love with a person, you can fall in love with an art, you can fall in love with your passion. The fourth thing is that you become a soldier. That is the beauty of Shakespeare. If you try to break it, if you try to divide it, one of the interpretations is that before you become a soldier, you need to fall in love. You need to know what are you going to fight for. What you fight for is your authentic self. Carl Jung was one of the most prominent psychiatrists in the world. He said the privilege of a lifetime is to be truly who you are. Is to be truly who you are. Why do I stop at this point is because when I use the word truly, it puts me into a different zone altogether. Unfortunately, many of the people don't know who they truly are. I hope that you get to know who you truly are. These are three examples in front of you. On the left top corner is the Ford. There are two cars. One is Ford, the other one is Ferrari. नीचे जो आपको दिख रहा है, that is the Apple's head office. And the third product that you see is Paperboat. Now, in the racing car business, Ferrari has been on the top. Ferrari, Lamborghini. What you see on the left is called a Ford Mustang. The Ford people came up with a product that was called as Mustang. They named it after one of the guys who developed this. This guy's name was Shelby. This car was driven by a guy called Ken Miles. This guy was into a different class altogether. Different class altogether. These cars were put into a race that was called as the Le Mans. This race used to happen in France. And the guy who owned Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, this guy was class apart. First, the people at Ford, they went to Ferrari and they said, I think we know that you need some funds, kuch paise ki zarurat hai aapko. So we'll give you the funds, don't worry about it. And what we will do is we'll acquire your racing business. You keep your name, Ferrari, but we decide what the Ferrari racing team does. And I'm not exaggerating. Enzo Ferrari abused and threw these people out of his office. He said, nobody dictates their terms on me. Nobody tells me how my racing business is, because racing is where my heart lies. So the people at Ford said, all right, so this is what this guy has done. We'll try to get the best engineers in the world. Shelby was the guy who came around, and Shelby came up with this product, Ford Mustang, and this was Ferrari on the right-hand side. Shelby could not drive because he had been retired. He was out of business. He was not into practice. He told that this is guy, Ken Miles. He's a wonderful driver. Take him. He's committed. He's mad. He would put his life before racing. For him, racing is everything. And that is what happened. Ken Miles came in. The Ferrari was in the race. The race lasted for, if I'm not wrong, 3 days, 3 to 4 days, Le Mans. It's not a single day race. It is one of the toughest races that can happen. And when the race was ending, Ferrari was staggering behind. This guy, Ken Miles, he won the race. But that is not the beauty. The beauty is, this gives me goosebumps. When Ken Miles got out of his car and was going to the pit stop, he saw Enzo Ferrari out there. Enzo Ferrari was the same guy who abused and threw the people from Ford out of his office. And this was the same car that was a result of that altercation that happened. Enzo Ferrari looked into the eyes of Ken Miles and he knew that this guy is the racer that needs to be respected. He deserves the respect. Enzo Ferrari, a true blue Italian, took off his hat in respect and showed it to Ken Miles. And he meant that, boss, you were a notch better than us. You were much better than us. It takes a lot of strength to do something of that sort. That day, Ferrari might have lost. But that day, Ferrari told to the entire world what Ferrari stands for. Ferrari stands for racing. What you see on the left-hand side down is the head office of Apple. When Apple was started, it is such a startling thing. Apple was started by Steve Jobs along with his friend Steve Wozniak. Steve Jobs became the epitome of technology throughout the world, the epitome of aesthetics around the world. You and I use Macintosh, you and I use iOS, but such a staggering fact, this guy, Steve Jobs, was not a tech guy. How could it be that he was not a tech guy and he built a product of this sort? Did they have more than $1 trillion worth of cash reserves with them? When Apple was being started, when Steve Jobs was starting Apple, there came a point where he could accumulate a team of 50 people. And he said one thing to these 50 people. He said, you know what? The people who are in this room, into this garage, the 50 of us, we are going to send ripples throughout the world. The world is going to know you and I for our quality. That is what authenticity is. In authenticity, there is no gray zone. There is nothing between black and white. It's either black or it is white. And you and I might refer these people to as crazy, but these are the crazy, like Steve Jobs said, these are the crazy, these are the misfits who have changed the world. 50 of us are going to put ripples across the world. Now, when you create a product or when you create a service, shouldn't you be asking yourself, what is my authentic self? Is it this what I'm standing out for? But you would say, Pratik, we are tax practitioners. How can we do this? As tax practitioners, I respect that. But would you discount this fact that one of the part of a service is also so as to give the customer that level of satisfaction that he might be expecting? I know yours is a very technical job, but what if you could add some element of customer satisfaction into it? What if that thing has not been done by anybody previously, and if you go and do it, is that not going to be the blue ocean that you would be creating? Look at what is on the right hand side of the screen. Paperboard. Paperboard was a product which nobody conceived could be possible in our country. Red Bull is the product which is known as to be the number one energy drink in the world. Paperboard came up with a product that was called as Zynga. The Zynga was being sold across cafe coffee days across. Paperboard said, our authentic self is that when people would be consuming our products, we would want them to get transported back into their childhood. So when you go and have Coke, you do not get transported back into your childhood, but when you open a Paperboard Ampanna, but when you open a Paperboard Jaljeera, when you open a Paperboard Kokam, when you open a Paperboard Amras, you get transported into your childhood. And that is what Paperboard wanted to do. And that is what Paperboard did. Why did not Paperboard get into the Coke thing? Because Coke was not their authentic self. When these guys at Google came down to Apple, came down to Steve Jobs, Larry Page was under a mentorship with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said, I'm going to mentor you. But just remember one thing. Don't ever get into the mobile phone business. I'm going to teach you all I have, but don't get into the mobile phone business. All due respect to Google. Google has done wonderful. They've created a wonderful product. But I think the authenticity, that is missing somewhere. Steve Jobs felt really taken aback when he got to know that Google is coming into Android. Authenticity. It is your authenticity that is going to set you apart. It is your authenticity that is going to create an attraction. It is your authenticity that is going to help you to create a community. There was a talk that was being done in the United States, and I had the great privilege to listen to that. It said that the people in the United States, they were given one particular, what do you call that? They were given a questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, they were asked, are you attached to someone? Are you attached to someone? Are you in love with someone? And do you know what they said? They said 39% of the people around there said that we are not attached to even a single person in our life. 39% of the people said that. These are the 39% of the people who might go into depression someday. Now the psychiatrist said, you need to do one thing. You need to understand what is your authentic self. What do you stand by for? Do you stand by for gardening? Go out and find people who are into gardening. And they did so. And what a wonderful quote they used. They said, we made a community. We made a community of the people who stood by for gardening. And as the garden started to bloom, so did we. Because it was for the very first time that we could find people around us who stood by for the same thing, who stood by for the common thing. You create a team for the people who stand for common things. No chink in armors. Nike. This is what Nike did. Phil Knight. Phil Knight was out of the Stanford, one of the most premium business schools across the world. And you know what? When he was there in Stanford, one of his professors asked him, Write a research paper of what you would want to do. He went back, he gave a research paper where he said he would be importing shoes from Japan and would be selling the shoes into the American market. Why did this happen to him? Because his authentic self was, he was an athlete. He could not be a class apart athlete. He could not be a titan, but he was an athlete. He knew that the athletes in the United States had a problem with running because they did not have access to the best quality shoes. And the Americans used to import the shoes from Japan. He said, why not I do it? Why not I import the best quality shoes into America and sell it? 12 years after graduating from the Stanford Business School, he did not have a steady flow of income. He said, I was going into depression. 12 years after coming out of Stanford Business School. He said, I used to look at my friends. They were the who of the who. They were the CEOs of the companies. If not the CEOs, they were they were treading on the path to become the CEOs. And what was I? In his memoir, he says, my credit cards used to get declined, but he stood by what he was for. And today, you know what Nike has done. One thing that sets apart Nike from every other brand, from the Adidas, from the Reebok, from the Asics, is that the brand Nike has always honored its athletes. Go and see their advertisements. It is not only into the business of providing you with the sports goods, it is also into the business of providing respect to the people who are into sports. That is what set Nike apart. So the question is, what do I stand for? What are my vulnerabilities? What is my kintsugi? Again, a Japanese term. Look at this. Now you see this pot is broken. And if I ask you how many parts is this broken from, you would say on the left-hand side, I can see the pieces are down on the floor. But this pot entirely is broken. The golden lacquer that you see is a mixture of gold and lacquer, which is put together so as to join this pot and come together. This pot was broken, but they got this pot together with gold and lacquer. The beauty of this thing is that even after it has been put together, you and I can see the cracks of it. And these are the cracks of the people and of this pot that makes it different from others. What is your kintsugi? What puts you apart from the others? What is your defining point? Pratik, but I don't know this. If you want to know this, there are 2 points. Number one is voluntary solitude. What is voluntary solitude? One is solitude imposed upon you. Go into that room, I punish you. Second is, I want to go into that room and stay with myself. No mobile phones. No nothing. It's just you with you. When I talk on this point, people say, Pratik, I'm a married man, I'm a married woman, I have a family. I said, wonderful, even I have a family. But I think that you deserve 15 minutes of time with yourself. Just with yourself, nobody else. The Fortune 500 magazine. If you go through the Fortune 500 and look at the top 10 companies, and if you take out the CEOs of these companies, and you try to find out what is that one common point amongst all of them. Number one, they're very successful. Number two, they add a lot of value to the economy. Number three, they make a lot of money. But the fourth is they practice voluntary solitude. They stay with themselves. When was the last time you stayed just with yourself? Even after you close your eyes onto the bed, you sleep. Even when you go onto the bed, you have that mobile phone, wonderful, that you bought for ₹1,00,000, but the other way around has happened. It has bought you. You did not have bought it. It has bought you around. You don't own it. It owns you. The first thing in the morning, I have to check my mobile phone. What message do I have? Has the nuclear missile been launched or not? The second is intramural gazing. See yourself as a char diwari. See your body as a structure which has got 4 corners to it, and stay within it and gaze into it and try to find out what your reality is. Of all the people that you have to be comfortable with, my dear friends, there is one person that you have to be very comfortable with, and that is you yourself. When people are left for 30 minutes with themselves, they start to go mad. They say we are hallucinating. Why do you have to hallucinate? Of all the people whom you love, there is one person that you have to love a lot, and that is you yourself. Voluntary solitude. If you want to take something away from this session today, tomorrow when you start your day, make a promise to yourself that I would be spending 15 minutes at least with myself, nobody else. Nobody else. Sit. And you don't know what to do? Forget everything. Just be with yourself. So time waste होगा, अरे होने दो यार 15 minutes. Let it get wasted for 15 minutes. Don't play your Candy Crush Saga that day. No Candy Crush Saga. 15 minutes of your time just with yourself. And when you are there with yourself, beautiful things would happen to you. You would get into conversation with you. You would smile. And there would be times when you would have tears. There would be times you would be going back in the past. Let it happen. After the conversation would be over, you would feel rejuvenated. That is what you have to do. That is going to help you to find your authentic self. Mindset. 4 mindsets. One is growth mindset. Next is fixed mindset. The people with the growth mindset, they say, I don't care where I am from. I don't care what my capabilities are. If I want to change, I change. The growth mindset. Prior to 1960, the world said every person has a fixed mindset. Why? Because the neurology of a mind cannot change. But post 1960, everything changed. Your brain's wiring can be changed. Your brain's size can change. Your brain can be rewired. Third mindset, victor mindset, the people who want to win always. And the fourth is the loser mindset. The people who would be unfortunate looking out for ways to lose. 3 people on your screen, black and white photos. These people, oh my God, what do I tell them about them? The guy with the revolver in his hand, Carlos Take, born in Hungary, was a sergeant in the Hungarian army. 1936, listen to this. This is going to make your day. 1936. This guy said that I want to participate into the Olympics. If you look at his pocket, you can see that he's firing in the Olympics. 1936, he wanted to go into the Olympics, but the Hungarian army did not let him participate in the Olympics. Why? Because they said only the commissioned officers can take part in the Olympics. You are not an officer, you are a sergeant, you cannot go in for Olympics. 1936, just look at the timeline. 1938, he was there in his practice grounds. He was throwing a grenade. He was lobbing a grenade from his right hand. His right hand was his primary hand. He was lobbing a grenade from his right hand. And could you believe it? The grenade exploded in his hands. His hands was in pieces. His primary hand was into pieces. This man said, better I commit suicide. But how do I commit suicide? I commit suicide with my left hand. But if I can use my left hand to commit suicide, why cannot I use my left hand so as to live my dream to shoot, my dream to fire, my dream to be a part of the Olympics? 1940, the Olympics gets cancelled because of the World War. 1944, again the Olympics gets cancelled. Look at the timeline. 1936, 1938, 1940, 1944, 1948. Till the time 1948 comes, he uses that time period so as to start shooting from his left hand, which was not his primary hand. He became the only second guy who was handicapped but was taking part in the Olympics and not the Paralympics. What is even great, that he won a medal into that Olympics. What is even greater is that he started as a sergeant, but he ended as a lieutenant colonel. But what sets him class apart is that after he retired, he did not stop there. He started to train others. He started to train others to be a part of the Hungarian army. He started to train others so as to shoot, so as to fire. Just imagine what would have gone through this guy's mind. Lost his right hand and had to wait for 1936 to 1948. 12 years. 12 years. Please don't take me wrong. When you're on the door, when you're on the gate, you push the bell. You have to push the bell for the second time. Nobody comes around. What kind of a mind state do you go into? This guy had to wait for good 12 years. What you see on the left, on the top and side left, is Percy Spencer. Percy Spencer was a scientist. He was a radiologist. He went into his lab and he was carrying a chocolate with himself in his pockets. Being a radiologist, he was always around different types of frequencies. And while he walked into the office, he had a chocolate. When he came out of the office, he saw that all his pant is spoiled up. All the chocolate has melted. If it would have happened with someone like me, I would have rushed to my home and I would have changed, except I'm going to accept it in front of you. That is what I would have done. Most of the others would have done the same. He might have also done the same. But while he would have been going to his home, he asked himself one question. He said, if this wave can be used so as to melt the chocolate in my pocket, can this wave be used to heat other food items also? And that is how he filed for the patent of microwave. And that is how he invented the microwave for the world. Percy Spencer, Victor mindset. Carlos Take, Victor mindset. What you see on the left bottom corner, Ole Christian. What a wonderful story this man has, heart-rending story. I talk to corporates, they say we have to take difficult decisions, we have to give pay cuts, we have to lay off people. That's really bad. But let me tell it to you, some of the people always intended to do this. But this guy is really different. So this guy had 4 kids and his wife, and this guy was a carpenter. He was known for his carpentry in Denmark, one of the best carpenters. He used to make toys for his kids and for the people outside. And unfortunately, there came a recession, just like unfortunately that people say is going to be around. His business went down. His wife came. Just look at the heartbreaks this guy went through. His wife came and she said, let me give you some money. Why don't you start your business again? Wife gave money. He lost his wife. Losing a business is a different thing. Losing someone you love truly, madly, deeply is a different thing. He lost his wife. He had 4 kids. He had to nurse his kids and he had to make toys so as to sell and also to take care of his kids. Somebody from the other bigger village came down and said, we have heard about your toys. Your toys are wonderful quality. I am a guy who's going to give you a big order. He started to dance. He said, oh my God, I've been through these difficult times. And now see, God is here to bless me. God is here to bless me. And I can go back and hire the people whom I had to lay off. And he asked everybody whom he had laid off to come back. Let's start my carpentry thing again. Let's make toys. And he started to make the toys. First heartbreak. When he started to make the toys, when the order was almost complete, he received a letter which said, the man who had given you the order has been declared as a bankrupt. He won't be able to take the order from you. This man who was a carpenter, whose core skill, whose authentic self was to be a carpenter, was going on the streets and he was acting like a salesman. He used to curse himself. Why do I have to do this? But eventually he could sell everything. Later, he came up with a new product that could be made out of plastics. And that is how his brainchild, Lego, was born. Unfortunately, even after the Lego came into existence, when he bought the new machinery, his office caught fire, his factory caught fire. But this man was not ready to give up, because this man was not belonging to a loser's mindset. This man had the victor's mindset. This man was ready to move from wood. This man was ready to move from wood to plastic, growth mindset. His son, just like him, he said, why is it that the kids just need to play with our toys? Why can't the kids go out and learn things from our toys? And Lego came up with city planning products. Lego came with the educational products. And if you go to Dubai, they have got a Lego land in Dubai. And Lego is worth millions and billions of dollars today. Authentic self, growth mindset. We are reaching towards the end. Number one, if you see these people, there's something that you can learn from them. Number one, you need to get rid of the destructive behavior. You know that some of your behavior can be categorized into destructive. You have to mind the language. What do you say to others? And what do you say to yourself? When you say to yourself, when you say, "Koi nahi sun raha," you are listening. Your brain starts to respond. And create mantras. This is one thing that you have to take away from today's session. Create mantras. Speak to yourself. Whenever you feel low, you need to speak to yourself. When you talk to the pilots and you ask them, what is your mantra for flying? They said, we learn three things. First is aviate, fly. Second, navigate. Know if you're flying to the right direction or not. And third is communicate. Keep on communicating with the air traffic control. This is what, unfortunately, I'm taking this guy's name. This is what Hitler did. Hitler used to have 3-word mantras. Ein Wok, ein Rich, ein Führer. We fight, ein Wok, ein Rich, ein Führer. You need to create mantras for yourself. You would be knowing when you're going down. And when you're going down, you need to start to speak to yourself. Pratik, everything is going to be okay. All right, I know. You know what? I speak to myself. I tell myself I've got very high potential. I'm going to come out of this. You need to speak to yourself. Get rid of the destructive behavior, mind your language, and create the mantras. Which zone are you in? The color that you see on the screen, red screen. When you are into the red part, you would be having a lot of self-doubt, self-infliction, self-negation, panic, aggression, and you would be feeling as if you're about to shut down. And there's the other zone. This is the blue zone. Blue zone is full of calmness. Blue zone is your zone. Pratik, how do I move from the red zone to the blue zone? Number one, you would know whether you're in the red zone or the blue zone. When you know that you're in the red zone, first, please accept that you're in the red zone. Please stop fooling yourself. No, I'm in the blue zone. First, accept that you're in the red zone. Next thing, you avoid emotions at that particular point of time. Avoid emotion. Don't get emotional at that particular point of time. Become stoic. And start to make anchors. When you know that you're going down, go back to your past. And from your past, cling on to the anchors. When was then that you were feeling that you are a wonderful, successful person? When was it that the people around you were praising you? And the moment you start to use those anchors, you move from the red to the blue. Almost on towards the end. This is what you see in front of you is the Golden Gate Bridge. The bridge is red in color. The water down below is blue in color. The people use this Golden Gate Bridge not only to commute from one part of the city to the other, not only as a tourist destination, very unfortunately, they also use it so as to end their lives. People jump from the Golden Gate Bridge. One of the top most known suicide points in the world. But why am I talking about this? Because there was an interview of a ranger who used to patrol this particular place, the Golden Gate Bridge. And he said, whenever anybody was suspected to commit suicide, I was called around there. I used to go out and talk to them. I could save almost 90% of the people from committing suicide. 10% could not be saved. 10% jumped in the water. And the moment they jumped into water, it took just 8 seconds for them to die. But why am I making this point around here is because some of these people who jumped into the water could be saved, a very small percentage. And when these people came back to the normal self and were asked, what was the first thing that came into your mind when you jumped from the bridge? Do you know what did they say? They said, the moment we jumped from the bridge, we thought that we shouldn't have jumped. And the moment you plunge from the blue zone to the red zone, from the positive zone to the self-negation zone, to the self-infliction zone, you plunge into it. But there's a part of your mind which says you shouldn't have done that. And that is the last part of my presentation. You can go higher, Jonathan. This image that you see on the left-hand side is a Greek god. I'm sorry, on the right-hand side is a Greek god. On the left-hand side, this guy is called Icarus. Each one of us must listen to this with great patience. Icarus's father, Daedalus, was an architect, was an engineer. And he defied the kings and he defied the gods. And he tried to one-up himself against the kings and the gods. The kings and the gods did not like what he did. And they placed him on an island. What you can see is an island. And they placed him on an island. And they said, you would rot here for the rest of your lives. And you would die here. But Daedalus did not want to accept that. And so he did not want it to happen for his son Icarus also. So what this wonderful architect, what this wonderful engineer did was, he created wings, what you can see. Both of them have wings. And the wings were attached to the human body with the help of wax. Daedalus started to fly and also taught his son Icarus to fly. But while Icarus was starting to fly, Daedalus said, let me remind of you one thing. When you fly, don't go real high. Don't go very high, because you should know that the wings are attached to your body through wax. And if you go very high, the wax is going to get melted. The wings are going to fall off and you're going to fall in the sea and you're going to die. Icarus started to fly. He loved flying. Flying was liberating. He kept on going up and up and up and up and up. And there came a point where the sun's heat started to melt the wax. The wings came apart and Icarus fell into the sea, fell into the ocean, and he died. This is a myth. This is a mythology. This is what people used to convey to the others, that you should listen to what your bosses say. You should listen to what your elders say. But this is only 50% of the story. There's one more part to the story. Daedalus told Icarus, please be reminded, don't fly too high, because the wax might get melted. But also remember, don't fly too low. Because if you fly too low, the sea current, the water current, the temperature that would be rising off from the sea might just make your wings stiff and you might die. You might fall into the water. You might fall into the water. The people who want to convey this thing always convey, don't fly too high. But there's the other part of the story also. Don't fly too low. Because if you fly too low, again, you might just get plunged into water. But there's one more thing that I want to tell you. None of you, none of us, neither you, neither me, none of us are Icarus. None of us has wings that are attached to us through wax. No matter how high we fly, the wax is not going to get melted. You can soar as high as you want. Nobody is stopping you. There's only one person who's stopping you. And that is you. No one else. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to get in touch with you. Thank you so much.